I love Pac-12 football. I'm a passionate Pac-12 football fan. It has been a long nut-busting trip with the Pac-12. The conference has been irrelevant for at least 5 years. And now you have all of this tumult and expansion that is inevitable in college sports. Let's just be honest about it. The minute that Texas and Oklahoma kicked off college football realignment and expansion, the Pac-12 had a window in time to act. And now yesterday, the Pac-12 conference has announced they're going to do what they always do, absolutely nothing. They are not going to expand. They are not going to add membership. They will not be adding football membership only. They're doing nothing. And it's frustrating because this conference, it's a conference of champions of the math club, because this conference doesn't win football or basketball titles. They don't. And the thing that is really disappointing as a fan of Pac-12 football is that I can't see it happening in the foreseeable future because the leadership of this conference is broken. And Jake, I guess where I want to start is, what is your opinion of the Pac-12 conference on the whole?
Yeah, I just think it's strictly mediocre. I think there's nothing special about it. I think the days of Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll at USC were when the Pac-12 was doing well. Those were the heydays. And that's all gone. That's been gone. That I really don't think that the Pac-12 has been anything to write home about since then. And you're talking, what was that? Over 10 years ago now? What was that? What was that? 2007?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I think, or 2008.
It's probably been 10 years. I was being probably generous when I said 5 years. It's probably been 10 years since this conference has been relevant.
You think about the talent that the Pac-12 has put out, and right now the Pac-12 does not put out teams in complete packages the way the SEC does. So when you think of the Pac-12, well, at least when I think of the Pac-12, I don't think of, oh man, this team is just going to be dominant this year. Whereas in the SEC, you're like, yep, Roll Tide, Alabama, they're going to be dominant. They're going to the college football playoff. That's the team that we're going to be looking for. And yeah, I'm going to be looking for LSU, Alabama in the swamp this year once again, So to me, for when you compare the Pac-12 to other conferences, I look at the Pac-12 and I say, man, I'm watching the Pac-12 for players, not teams. And that's a problem because at the end of the day, great football is team-oriented matchups. Like, hey, Utah and USC for the South, like those kind of matchups I want to be excited about, but it's hard for me. Because, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier in the week, and if you've been listening this week, you'll remember this. We specifically talked about who's going to win the South and probably who's going to win the North. And every single year, what do I hear about USC? And frankly, what do I hear about the Pac-12? Oh my God, we've got all these great teams. There's so much talent. USC is just loaded. They look amazing. And UCLA is doing some nice things. Maybe Cal could add another win to the schedule this year. And what do we get? Nothing. We get nothing. Absolutely nothing. So when I'm talking BYU and Utah and the Holy War, I'm like, yeah, you're damn right. Utah has more to lose. But at the end of the day, is the Pac-12 any more entertaining than BYU against LSU or BYU against Miami or BYU against some epic SEC opponent? Not really. And that's the problem. This is what happens when you leave, Larry Scott in control for, 2 decades, probably 5 to 7 years, way too long. Hell, I saw on Facebook memories when we went to Pac-12 Media Day, what was that, 5 years ago? And we had Larry Scott sit right in front of us and tell us, oh yeah, we've got deals with DirecTV coming, we've got a media rights package coming out. That never came out. And so as usual, when Pac-12 expansion came up, and conference expansion came up, what did I think? Nothing's going to happen here. They're not going to do anything because that's who this conference is. Whereas in the SEC, you have forward-thinking, aggressive leadership that takes you places. And so I don't know how you fix what ails the Pac-12 other than to just say, hey, you guys need better leadership. You guys need people to come in and say, this is where we have to go. And until that happens, they're always going to be struggling to be at the table as far as the P5 conferences are concerned.
My biggest question about the Pac-12 is, can we honestly sit here and say on Friday, August 27th, a week before the season opens, can we honestly sit here and say that the Pac-12 conference and its leadership is doing everything possible to be even relevant and win championships? I don't think you can. I look at this opportunity, and I'm not trying to be sensational, but I look at this opportunity. You change commissioners. There was a loud, distinct sigh of relief and celebratory machinations the moment that Larry Scott was fired by this conference. It was a moment where you could take a big step forward.
Yeah, a lot of momentum.
And yet, you're just doing the same thing you've always done. And maybe it wasn't the commissioner, maybe it's the presidents, maybe it's the athletic directors. I don't know. But what I do know is right now today, the Pac-12 conference is irrelevant. When we talk about championships and we talk about winning the college football playoff, the Pac-12 conference is irrelevant. When we talk about winning a national championship in college basketball, the Pac-12 is irrelevant. It has been one of the most disappointing basketball conferences in this country for years running. COVID be damned. And I understand that there were some good stories last year. But with the evolution that has taken place in college basketball, the Pac-12 is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You're not going to ever be Gonzaga. You're not ever going to be Duke or North Carolina in basketball. You're never going to be any institution in the SEC in football.
Is Arizona not the perfect example?
Arizona should be a dominant basketball program year in and year out.
Yet, what do we get?
You get scandals and fired coaches.
Not good enough. Can't win any games. You know, the Jesus Christ of redheaded basketball players and Nico Mannion never lived up to it at Arizona. Like, it just gets tiring.
All we heard from Arizona fans was, oh, just let us compete for a title this year and then, rip the program apart. Well, that's exactly what they did, and you completely fell apart. Oh, it's Sean Miller's fault. Okay, but what's the excuse now? Like, this conference of champions is not a conference of champions. It's a conference of has-beens. Never were.
Yep.
Not relevant. I mean, USC is the only marquee brand when it comes to football. With all due respect to Oregon, I don't think Oregon's ever gotten back to where they were with Chip Kelly, and I don't know that they ever will, frankly. I know right now they're not, and I know right now that until another brand, and I'd love it to be Utah, until Utah takes control of this conference, and with the influx of transfers, you have an opportunity to do that. Until Utah takes control of this conference, they are not relevant either. And it goes back to your original point. And the question I asked earlier in the week that I got flummoxed for. Who's in a better position to be relevant, BYU or Utah? And I'm telling you, it's BYU. Because the Pac-12 conference is holding their membership hostage on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it be Friday night death trips to Corvallis, whether it be, just unspeakable loss of revenue through a lack of streaming and media rights.
And these are not hard things to do.
No.
Right? Like, this isn't rocket science.
These are all things you're in control of. These are all things that the Pac-12 has had their hands on for years and has chosen to do nothing about. And the struggle is changing the way you've always done things, but not being able to accomplish that. And so when you do the same things you've always done, you're going to get the same results you've always gotten, which is why you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Which is why the Big 12 is far more compelling. Even as they've lost now Texas and Oklahoma, the Big 12 is far more compelling. If the Pac-12 really wanted to win, and if the Pac-12 really wanted to be a power conference, to play with the big boys, to play with the SEC, if that's where the Pac-12 was and wanted to be, they'd have sold out to get everybody they could get. They would have gone after Oklahoma State. They would have gone after any big marquee program left in the Big 12. you'd have gone and, chased down a vulnerable Big Ten right now. Because the Big Ten's vulnerable. The Big Ten probably got too big. And everybody, again, here's another thing everybody says I've been crazy about. Nebraska would like another conference. I think Nebraska, if you said to Nebraska right now, hey, you want to go back to the Big 12? They would probably say, well, let's see who else is going to be there. But yeah, that wouldn't be the end of the world. If you just said that before Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska would have jumped at that.
Yeah.
Now, you can't tell me that Nebraska would be like, yeah, hey, the Pac-12 wants us to join. Sure, let's do it. I firmly believe. The problem is, and here this goes back to the heart of the conversation, schools like Nebraska aren't going to leave the money they're making in the Big Ten to go to the Pac-12 because you're not going to make money in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I don't think that if for the Pac-12 the conversation should be you got to fix the camera there, Donnie.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah, there you go. The conversation shouldn't be trying to get schools like Nebraska to join your conference. The conversation needs to be, how do we get USC to be more relevant? How do we get
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Oregon, bless their heart, Colorado. How do we get Colorado to be just a little bit better? They don't have to be national championship good, but one, maybe two more wins better a year, like quality-wise, depth chart on your roster-wise.
It's money.
Talent-wise. And yeah, and I agree. It's money, and it's facilities, and it's recruiting, and it's actually trying. Because I do, think about this. Like, on the surface, if you're just a casual observer of football, you're not following all this expansion crap and, all the extracurriculars that go on in the Pac-12. If you're just saying, looking at the schedule, and you're saying, wow, USC and Oregon, that should be a great matchup. When you see that on paper, that's an exciting matchup if you didn't know any better. And that's why I think the Pac-12 they don't have that far to go to be good, but they just won't do the extra little things that the SEC is doing, that the ACC is doing to be a great conference. I mean, college football is the SEC plus Clemson plus Ohio State. That's what college football is. And if someone happens to come out of the Pac-12, neat. But damn near every year the playoff has been around, it's the SEC and frankly the top 4 teams in the SEC plus Clemson plus Ohio State. That's what we do every single year.
Yeah, and it is the frustration of BYU fans because you're in a situation now where BYU should be the number one target of any conference.
Yeah,
that's expanding. And if that is the Big 12, if that and this is the amazing part about the Pac-12. Research institutions and land grants and my mom's underwear. Shut up.
My fucking ass.
If you want it, you can have it. If you want it, if you want as Oklahoma to get into the big, the big boy, end of the pool, the deep end of the pool, you go to the SEC.
I want it.
How long has Texas been looking to get away from the Big 12?
Forever. Long time.
And they finally did it. If you really wanted to win national championships, if you are the Pac-12, you would have expanded and you would have already added BYU. To bring in a natural rival to Utah, to make that a marquee television game that could have conference championship and thereby national championship implications.
To add more ESPN exposure to your conference?
Come on. Are you really telling me that you don't believe that BYU is a solid athletic addition to any conference? You're better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the conversation we wind up having all the time. And it's this tipping point of, well, if BYU joins the Pac-12, I actually think it's possibly a step back from where they are right now.
Yeah.
Because Tom Homo made it very clear weeks ago, BYU Athletics is making money.
Yep.
And they're doing that through BYU TV. They're doing that through, the radio network. They're
doing it through the flexibility they have as an independent. That's
absolutely,
how they're doing it.
Absolutely. And to be on a dominant stick like KSL, to have the radio affiliates they have, to have BYU TV, to have the coaches shows every week.
And think about that. But all these things you're naming, these are all things the Pac-12 could be doing.
But the problem is that individual schools can't go and do that because, oh, well, the media rights in the Pac-12 belong to the conference. And if I am Texas, the Pac-12 is not even an option because I've got the Longhorn Network.
Yeah.
If you are BYU, why would you sign away your media rights to the Pac-12?
Yeah, and
why would you do that?
And that's a great point. I mean, the Pac-12 isn't helping itself. The Pac-12 is in that way. The Pac-12 is limiting itself, and who would want to join their, air quotes, their team, right? Like, why would somebody want to come to the Pac-12 who's already got an established TV network, who's already got all this stuff lined out that they've been working their ass off to set up, and then you're going to go and join a conference in the Pac-12 where you can't use any of that? That doesn't make too much sense.
And here's the other problem. You've been an independent long enough now that you're actually swimming. You're not just treading water anymore. You are rocketing, floating on top of the water, if you will.
Yeah.
You're not just treading. The BYU Athletics is making money as an independent. And I look at BYU football, which is what we're talking about, obviously. You look at BYU football. They've got a great TV deal. They've got all the media stuff. They dominate social media. Their content creation, their content team is fantastic.
Yeah.
You've got a really good football program in that your athletic director and your coach are in lockstep. You have an athletic director that is doing everything he can do to build a schedule to put you in the conversation. I don't know that there are many places that are going to be better for BYU than independents. I look at this Apostle Holland situation with his talk on Monday. This is how do I say this gently? Apostle Holland's words are not problematic. They're actually probably refreshing to a large number of LDS members. And notice he wasn't talking about football. And if you missed it somehow, and I don't know how you would miss it, but Apostle Holland essentially said that Jesus Christ loves his sinners, but he doesn't agree with their sins. And if you are a faculty member, or he essentially said if you are in the LDS community and if you are a BYU student, faculty member, and you see people that are outside of the faith or living outside of the tenets of the LDS faith, it is your job to say something and do something. And he pointed that right. I think a lot of people, and I can't disagree, that Apostle Holland pointed his comments right at the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And the ever-growing prominence of the gay community at BYU was not appreciative of his comments.
Well, and I think, for those of you who don't live in Salt Lake, for our California listeners, our Phoenix listeners, folks who are not in the state, there's this dynamic at play when we're having this conversation where the LGBTQ community is growing rapidly in Salt Lake City proper. There is a large community for those folks. And so when you go to Provo, which is about, I don't know, what do you think, 40 miles south?
Yeah.
Probably. It's close enough, but it's far enough away where it's kind of two separate landscapes. You have in Utah County down south where BYU is, it's very, very different. It's very conservative. It's very much a different world. But that community, the LGBTQ community, is still growing. So there's a lot when Apostle Hollins is having this conversation and sharing his thoughts on this. Obviously, it impacted a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And
yes.
I think it's it's not an easy discussion, but I think if you're at BYU, this is right on point. This is what you would expect somebody at BYU to say.
But I grew up Catholic, like the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was an altar boy, went to church.
Everything.
Like the whole nine.
Yeah, everything.
I cannot tell you how many times I heard, but we love the sinner, but we hate the sin.
That's enough of that crap.
And if you're gay, if you're a homosexual, you're going to hell.
Oh, what a loser!
Now give us your money, please. Thanks. Like that's what the Catholic Church is. And so when we start comparing faiths, which is always a terrible idea, and you delineate this down to how this impacts football, Tell me that any of the church leadership at Notre Dame would disagree with what Apostle Holland said. Because he basically said, we are going to love all LGBTQ members. We love them, unequivocally. But do not confuse our love with condoning. Do not confuse our love with approval. And it becomes problematic when you have a conference like the Pac-12 where, gay pride and the gay community and the trans Q community in the Pac-12 is massive. It is significant. It has a voice.
You think that stuff isn't a big deal in Berkeley?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if you look at Berkeley, Stanford, Los Angeles, now obviously the worlds collide because there ain't nothing in Corvallis that's in common with Los Angeles. The campus of USC is in South Central Los Angeles, and there's nothing in sync with Corvallis and Los Angeles. There just isn't. So you can coexist if you want to. But to be back to the point, what Apostle Holland did was exactly what you would want one of the Quorum of 12 to do. He talked about the word. He talked about the sacred beliefs, the way that you act. It's why we have BYU Idaho and BYU Provo, right? To me, Apostle Holland said nothing wrong.
And just for those who don't know the difference, what would you say the difference is between
BYU Idaho is far more conservative and restricting in your actions. Like, I know people who have gotten kicked out of BYU Idaho for the movies they watch in their dorm room with their roommates. Basically, BYU Idaho is just a lot more restrictive and conservative. And I think there is a push amongst the youth in the church right now to make BYU Provo a lot more liberal, a lot more open, a lot less conservative. And I think part of what Apostle Holland was saying was, we're not doing that. Now, if you agree with the faith, that's cool. If you don't, that's cool. But there's no getting around the fact that what Apostle Holland said was absolute doctrine. Mm-hmm. He said, we are going to love the sinner unequivocally, but we are not going to condone or love their sins.
Yeah.
And I just don't have that much of a problem with it because it goes back to what Bronco Mendenhall always used to say.
Yep.
Football is fifth. Football is not and never will be number one at BYU. And that's exactly how it should be.
Yet they have a media rights deal, and they have Built Bar deals, and they have a beautiful facility, and they're making money. And the Pac-12 is still tripping all over themselves and continuing to faceplant every single year.
I think that the best of BYU is exactly why they would never get into the Pac-12. But I don't think you want into the Pac-12 today. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think you want into the Big 12. And I think now that Texas and Oklahoma are out, this political and religious, conversation really is far, far less impactful because there is a certain air of desperation in the Big 12. And you're willing to overlook Sunday play to get an institution like BYU that makes you money and puts you on national TV and puts the logo on national TV. That's what BYU does. Now, you want to go and get Boise State? Their blue turf is cool, but are they going to make you the money that BYU's making you?
Not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close.
With all due respect to Aggie tiers, do you want to go get Utah State?
Nah.
Do you? Figure it out. Any other member of a G5? You want to go and get Temple? Oh, it's a fine, upstanding institution of higher learning. Yeah, get out of here. BYU is the best available property by far. They've got everything you want. If you're the Pac-12?
What's the excuse going to be?
When they join the Big 12, it's a loss for the Pac-12. Now, BYU's not a fit in the SEC. BYU is likely not a fit in the Coastal. Based on geography. At some point, geography has to matter.
Yeah.
I think that the Big Ten doesn't want to expand its footprint past Nebraska. I could see them going east, not west. BYU belongs in the Big 12. That's the conference that makes the most sense. All right, let's get some of your comments in here. Let's see who I have tweaked this morning. Jeremy Bolton says, morning, gents. James Knight says, how they hanging, mates? What's up? Cody Strickland says, hey, boys, the new Spider-Man movie looks badass. I'm an adult. No, I'm kidding. That was more a shot at Jake, who, well, let's watch Lord of the Rings tonight.
There's life lessons.
Yeah, the fish, she swims into the ocean and they go and save him.
Hey, look here, man.
Oklahoma gets in there every time too, but then they proceed to get smashed, Jeremy Bolton says. Well, same thing with Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame has a predetermined seat at the table. How's that worked out for Alabama? Very well. Jeremy Bolton says BYU by all means is a P5 team, but not in the P5 in a P5 conference, no doubt. Jackson Graham says if it's about football, they would have been in already. Well, right, but the landscape changes. The Pac-12 didn't need BYU, and now they need BYU. So there are loud calls for the Big 12 to add BYU. I don't know. Should the Big 12 just dissolve itself? I doubt that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. I think it depends what options are presented to them. You know, I mean, you have to figure out what you can get done before you can make decisions like that. You know,
I don't think the Big 12. I don't know, man. I don't think the Big 12 should dissolve itself. I really don't. I mean, if you think about...
Listen, if BYU can get into the conference, why would they dissolve themselves? You know, why, like if they can get that deal done, why would you dissolve yourself? You wouldn't. But, you know, if you're looking at, again, if you're looking at lower end teams and, you know, it doesn't make sense financially, then yeah, they will. But I just think that there's too much opportunity.
This is a conversation around, well, let's add Cincinnati. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, my God. How did that work out for you?
Not good.
Oh, but we got East Carolina and
My fucking ass.
the schools that are being talked about, like adding Navy to the Big 12 was something I heard the other day.
No.
Like, what are we talking about? The AAC with teams like Cincinnati, East Carolina, and Navy, those are good schools. I don't give a daggum grip about South Florida.
Yeah, who cares?
Does South Florida fit with Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas, K-State?
No.
Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, West Virginia?
No.
They don't. They don't.
You're telling me West Virginia is more of a commodity than BYU? Come on.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, BYU. If you had BYU in one other school, and my guess is that if you are going to go to, you know, pick your Conference USA, I don't know that there's a team in Conference USA that works. I mean, there. In fact, I know there's not. Okay, well, if we go to the MAC, the MAC.
But why would they do that?
Why would you? Are you going to go to a school in Buffalo or any of the Ohio MAC schools?
Listen, BYU is going to stay independent until they get into a P5. It's that simple.
The two that make sense for the Big 12 are BYU, and I agree with the people who are saying San Diego State.
Yeah.
San Diego State makes a hell of a lot of sense. I could see BYU and Boise State. You know, I could see. I mean, look, Boise State is not the Statue of Liberty play for a national championship so I can propose to my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're not.
Yeah.
And when you look at what's out there, I'm telling you, that if we're going mountain, I don't know how you don't take San Diego State. If you are hell bent, and a lot of people think the AAC is where teams are going to get picked from. What in the AAC says to you, these are the teams in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, East Carolina, Houston, perfect fit in the Big 12, in my opinion. Memphis, no. Navy, SMU, SMU.
Nah.
Can you ever go home? South Florida, Temple, Tulane, Tulsa, UCF.
Nah.
I think the two that make sense there are Houston and SMU for the footprint and the lineage of football. But do you tell me SMU or Houston's a better property than BYU?
Yeah. The options are clear. I
think so.
The options are clear.
I don't know, though. You know, the thing that really stands out to me is what do you need if you're BYU to join a conference? Because again, I know I'm probably the only one who says this. You're living very well in independence.
You are. I mean, you're not. So here's the thing. The question, like, the balls of the conversation for BYU are how much does it matter to us to try and win a national championship in football? That's the question, because if you really think about it, what are they not getting in independence that they would get by joining a conference? That's the real issue here. For BYU fans, you're sitting here saying, damn, I want to be a bowl team every year, and I want to do that at 10 wins. That's what I want. I want it. And I can't get it every single year because Tom Holmoe is too damn good at his job and has LSU coming up on the calendar. So like I think for BYU the real struggle here is that overall there's not incentives to move. We just discussed how it doesn't make sense to go to the Pac-12, so cross that off the list. You're not a fit in the SEC. Cross that off the list. You're not going to play on the East Coast, an East Coast-based conference, so cross that off the list. So to your point, the Big 12 is where it's at.
Yeah.
That's where it's at for you, both geographically, and for the rules and the things that you need to work out. But the point is, at the end of the day, does joining the Big 12 improve your odds of winning a national championship the day after you join the conference? Because I think you can make a case. I'm not saying it's 100% true, but you can definitely make a case that it doesn't. That if they would just recruit better, if BYU would continue to improve the talent that they bring into the program, and which they are. It's a slow process. They are. But they need to be a 10, 11 win team every year to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and I think that's why if I'm BYU, I am not in a hurry.
And by doing that, you put all this conference realignment nonsense to bed, and you're just like, dude, we're an independent, we're chilling, we're going to continue to add, NIL deals, we're going to continue to recruit at a really high level, and one of these years, it's going to happen, and I think that's just where it's at.
Jeremy Bolton says, people are taking Holland's talk way out of context. Like, did anyone actually read or listen to his talk? I listened to it, even paid attention because I didn't want to miss anything, and I don't get it. He wasn't mean or offensive. Well,
the analogy about defending the face with muskets is a little excessive.
But ask yourself this question, Jeremy. How much empathy do you have for the LGBTQ community? Because if you are if you are a lesbian student at BYU, if you are a trans student at BYU, if you are in that community, you're offended. There's no doubt. Because what Apostle Holland said was, hey, if you're gay, you're
going to hell.
I mean, that's cool, but yeah, I'm not having you over for dinner. I mean, I love you, and I'll help you with your homework. But I can't have you around the kids.
God bless.
That's what it feels, right? I mean, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Did he say that? No.
But he said it.
But if you're an LGBTQ student at BYU, that's what it feels like.
Okay, fuck you. How's that?
Can you walk into church this Sunday as a gay man at BYU and feel truly accepted?
Obviously not.
Can you, if you are a trans student that is not out? Let's put it this way, if you are a gay, lesbian, trans student who is not out at BYU, how comfortable are you in church this Sunday? After that talk, I'm not real comfortable. I might not feel well Sunday morning. And I'm being serious. Like, and think about, and now I think it needs to be said, if you are a closeted gay man or woman at BYU, you knew you were going to feel this way.
At some point.
You knew. Because this is what BYU is. I mean, this is not a secret. This is like non-members, signing the honor code. You knew it was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
If you're a guy that, if you're a guy that plays football and you drink beer and you go to BYU, you're probably going to get a ticket for, possession by consumption.
I think that's HIPAA.
That could be HIPAA. That's a good point. But my point is that you know what you're in for when you come to BYU. It's not like BYU tries to hide things, right? But the point is when we are talking about the explosion of youth in the church and the dissension of youth in the church and the separation of youth from the church, I don't know that I would equate this to mountains out of molehills, because there are some damaged feelings. And those are real feelings. Those are real humans that are struggling with their gender identity in some cases. They're struggling with the ability to feel like they belong at BYU. So I think we need to empathize with those that Apostle Holland was talking to. And having read the transcript of and watched, I haven't watched the full talk. Obviously, I've seen highlights of it because they're everywhere. Maybe I need to sit down and watch the full talk, because I still think hearing him say the musket thing is a problem.
Yeah.
The
That was
musket thing's a
inappropriate
problem.
for sure.
Yeah, I did not love that. I mean, his message resonates with me.
The message is on point for the beliefs of the church, but for
It is.
anybody outside of their little atmosphere there down in Provo, it was not cool.
Yeah, if you're outside of the Provo bubble, it's
And,
not.
and that's the thing. Like, I don't mean any disrespect by that, but the fact is these guys, guys like Collins are living in a bubble, dude. Like, I understand who you are and what your job description is and what you try to live your life, inside of. But the fact is your little 1 by 1 mile of people that you're talking to is not representative of the entire state, and it's certainly not representative of anybody living in Salt Lake County.
Well, I think, I don't know about that. I mean, I think, and this is probably a different conversation. I don't know. I mean, the church has evolved so much in the last 10 years. I mean, the membership has evolved so much in the last 10 years.
But here's what I think they got to be careful of, and this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. The in Utah. So we lived here in Utah once before, about 5 years ago now, before we moved to Phoenix. 5 years ago in Utah, this state was very different, right? This state was much more conservative than it is now. And so the point that I'm getting at here is just that when Apostle Hollins is giving, talks or speeches, whatever you want to call it, like this, and he's saying the things he's saying, I hope that he does that with an understanding that they are going to be criticized. They are going to be that's going to be a problem with a lot of people.
I think that's part of the reason you give a talk like that.
Yeah.
Because you want the conversation. You want people on Family Home Evening talking about, hey, did you hear what Apostle Holland said? You want these conversations.
Yeah.
And this is part of the problem, to your point. When you are religious and you live in a home that is very religious and devout, there's not a whole lot of conversations about your gay son or your gay daughter or your trans daughter, or
Nope.
There's not a whole lot of that conversation happening. Not on Monday, not on Wednesday, not on Sunday.
Definitely not on Sunday.
Right? And in a lot of corners of the LDS community, having a gay or lesbian or trans child ostracizes you.
Yeah.
Certainly ostracizes that child. Right? So the difficult dynamic of the church, I think, has changed quite a bit. And I think every once in a while the quorum has to make it known that, oh yeah, this is a great youth movement we're having, but don't forget, hey, we're over here.
Yeah.
Hey, don't forget,
Nothing's changed.
we're going to love the sinner unequivocally, but that does not mean we are going to accept you. That does not mean that we are going to condone what you're doing. That does not mean that you have a temple recommend. Think about how this applies to people's lives.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a lesbian? Oh, you're gay? Yeah, that mission you've always dreamed of, it's full right now. That's what we're talking about.